So I'm going to be connecting the controllers, and there's a couple things we need to do. We need to make sure that first it's named, and second that we have frozen transformations on everything. The other thing we need to worry about is how we go about parenting these controllers correctly. So we have a parenting hierarchy here, all going and leading back towards the root control. This is our spine 1. So I'm going to go ahead and parent that to my root control. And my spine 1, I'm going to shift select the corresponding spine joint. Under the rigging tab, go to constrain and orient. Let's undo that. Let's do this again. Constrain, orient, check this settings box and hit maintain offset here, and now apply. Again, check name and transformations over here, make sure it's frozen. Shift select P. So now I have this chain going from this controller to the next. From here, shift select the corresponding joint, constrain, orient. Now, it's always good to double check these controllers. The orient constrain will only control the rotation. It will not control the translate. So, moving this around, you'll see the rest of the skeleton begins to move. This one as well will only control the rotation. So, when we get there, we're going to lock and hide translate X, Y, Z controls as well as X, Y, Z scale. And visibility is optional, but really the only ones you need are rotate X, Y, and Z. Double check the name, make sure it's frozen transformations. Shift select the next joint, P, and we're creating what is called a FK setup, which stands for forward kinematics. P, constraint orient. So, as you run through these, you should see that each joint is controlling the next. Again, check the name, check your translations. This is extremely important. Parent it to the previous controller. Constrain, orient. Select the corresponding joint. Now constrain, orient. And we're going to do this again. For my clavicle controls, I parent these to my chest control. Constrain, orient. And good thing I double checked. I thought I had missed something for some reason. Right here, scale X, modify, freeze transformations. Make sure your pivot points also are snapped directly to the joints. Constrain, orient. Again here, as you can see, this is not zeroed out at all. Modify, freeze transformations. Shift select the chest control, P. Now select the controller, shift select the joint, constrain, orient. Now, you can have the arm controllers shoulder controllers parented to your clav. A lot of times you might not want that. So you can always change it later if you'd like, but I generally start by parenting the shoulder controllers to the chest controller. Constrain, orient. Again, over here, selecting the shoulder control, shift select the chest control, P, always double checking your channel box to make sure you have frozen transformations and that it is named correctly. Selecting the shoulder controller, shift select the joint, constrain, orient. And now it's always good to double check just to make sure everything's working correctly, and everything is so far. Let's go ahead and work our way down the rest of the elbow. Elbow is parented to the shoulder. Make sure you have frozen transformations. Zoom in, select the joint, constrain, orient. Again, selecting the elbow control, shift selecting the shoulder parent, selecting the elbow controller, shift selecting the elbow joint, constrain, orient. Extremely repetitive process. Selecting the wrist, shift select the elbow parent, selecting the wrist controller. Go ahead and select the wrist joint, constrain, orient. Do that once again over here, selecting the wrist control, shift selecting the elbow parent, and we're creating this hierarchy of FK, forward kinematic rig controllers, to control our constrain, orient, our character. For the finger controllers, we're going to add a whole bunch of attributes in here. For right now, we're just going to parent these to the wrist. Parent this one to the wrist. And going back over here, the neck gets parented to the chest. The neck, shift select the neck controller, shift select the neck joint, constrain, orient. The head controller, shift select the neck, P, selecting the head controller. Zoom in, select the head joint, constrain, orient. And for now, our controllers should all be there. Let's go ahead and do one more thing and create our final controller, which will control everything by going create, NURBS, circle, scale large, go ahead and just drag that down. Name this one global control, modify, freeze transformations. This is where we'd want it to be at the very, very bottom. And this is going to control the scale, position, and rotation of this character. The most important, this is arguably the most important controller to have, because this will allow us to scale it to any scene meshes or models at whatever scale they have it. So it doesn't matter essentially the scale, because it'll scale uniformly as long as you build it proportionately, that it will, the entire thing will scale correctly. So this is really, really important to do. So selecting your root control, shift select your global control and press P. Same for each foot control. if your character rig cannot do this, and you're working in a studio environment where you need everything to depend upon a correct scale so you can put your scenes together correctly. If it cannot do this, you're in big trouble, because um, then it will basically be useless, because you'll have a mini-me character over here where you would have a super, unless it's built that way, but you know what I mean, a super large character here where they're supposed to be approximately the same size. I'm going to do one last thing with my eye controllers over here, and I'm not going to connect these yet, but I'm going to take both of these, shift select the eyes, P. So now this will be, some people parent this to the head controller. I find that not the best way to do it, because of the ways the eyes move. Whenever you move your head, your eyes actually stay locked in position staring at something. They snap very quickly to what they are looking at. And if your eyes are constantly always facing forward, if you were to parent it to the head controller here, as I'm going to show you, here, go ahead and move around. Let's go ahead and show you what I mean. Those eyes are always going to be facing forward. It's very, very awkward. So the best way to do this is actually have these parented to the global control as well. Now you can see the entire rig is actually functional. Going to the global control, the final test is to just check to make sure that it all scales correctly, and it does. And rotation and position. So that's where we're at with connecting the upper body controls. We still have to connect the finger controls, and we still also have to get to the eye controls. So we're going to do the fingers using the connection editor. We're going to create a whole bunch of attributes that we're going to be able to control. And the eyes, we're going to use a constrain. But for right now, this is where we should all be. And thanks for watching, and stay tuned for next time.